This isn't that. Yeah, just have a seat. What we've got tonight, this is obviously the tightest event we've ever had, and the shortest, because we only have 3 races. We have the City Commission race, State House, and U.S. House. A few ground rules, because we do not have a direct feed to the speaker. Clint's asked that, especially you people near him, be as quiet as possible, if you would, or unless you want all your conversations broadcast out to the world. We do have Kelly at Avian Paradise, who's been with us forever, and Clint with Two Oceans is putting it online, and we're going to be seamlessly streaming all night, and then a recording will be up for Tim O'Hara in the morning. He's got babysitting tonight. Starting out, we have Lisette is here. Kim Highsmith got COVID today. She let us know earlier. We were going to try to do for a first time some kind of electronic communication, but she said, and I think we had an event with Terry where that if you're not thinking clearly, it's probably best to just not do it. So we're going to get going. Before we start into the questions with Lisette, we had a couple of people, I think. Terry, why don't you come up and did you want to say thank you to the voters?
I do.
It'll help kind of break the ice for everybody. And as usual, if anybody's watching online, text me or Clint and let us know how terrible it is or how wonderful it is. 2 people will say how wonderful it is, and 80 will tell us that it sucks. Terry, you have the floor for right this moment.
Oh, thank you so much. And I do want to take the time to thank everybody who came out and voted in the primary. It's a real honor to serve my 3rd term as mayor of this incredible community. Growing more incredible every weather event that you get through, because it's it's just such a compassionate community. And I want to tell you this because we have friends in Fort Myers and we have friends in Inglewood, and we really are very fortunate as a community. And I know that people took on water. We are going to make sure those houses are repaired. By the time we wind up, we're probably going to have about 300 homes that are barely livable, and that's 5% of our housing units in the city of Key West. So that's an impact. We do have crews out there. All of your yard waste is going to be picked up. I'm just using this as a commercial topic. But all of your yard waste will be picked up. We had to have our trucks certified by FEMA before we could even go out for one load. And with everything that was going on up north, it took them till Friday to get down to certify us. So as soon as we got certified, we hit the road. But you know what kind of debris we've got out there. But we will get around to everybody. We're going to be clean. We're going to get people back in their houses. And we're just going to be a happy little Key West again. But thank you so much for your support. It's an honor to continue to serve as your mayor.
Now you want to come down? This is your one opportunity.
Thank you.
Take your thing.
Thank you. I'm Al Kelly, your county court judge-elect, and I want to thank the voters for entrusting me with this position. We actually started the campaign in October of 2019, and the plan was to meet as many voters as possible to give them as much information as possible when they went to the polls. I believe in an educated electorate. I want you to know not only who you're voting for, but why. My friend and friend Jason is here in the audience. I want to thank Jason for the campaign that he ran as well. It was an honor to run against somebody who ran a clean campaign like that, and I appreciate that very much, Jason. I also want to thank Hometown, because starting with the call for candidates back in March, you gave the voters an opportunity to get to know the candidates and their backgrounds. As a candidate, that's the hardest thing to do, to get your name out and tell people why they should vote for you. And Hometown gave us that opportunity, so I want to thank you for that. The position that I'm entering into starts on January 3rd, but we've already started the transition process. I've been meeting with the judges, the court staff. I've already hired my judicial assistant. I'm attending as many hearings as possible so that the transition into the court will be seamless. Again, I want to thank everyone. I promise the people of Monroe County that I will treat the people who come to my court with dignity and respect. are ruled fairly, impartially, and according to the law. Thank you.
Thank you, Earl. I was about to tell him to wrap it up. Would be the first time I get to do it for a few years. Any other newly elected officers or officials here? Huh? I don't think so. Well, we get right into it. We have our panelists here today. Why don't you each introduce yourselves? Mandy, you're reaching for the mic, so go ahead.
Hi everybody, thanks for coming. My name's Mandy Miles, editor of the Keys Weekly newspaper. I've been here in Key West for 24 years, since 1998, spent 21 years with the Citizen, and now going on 3 or 4 years with the Keys Weekly. So happy to be here, and thanks to all of you for coming.
Did Seymour get COVID too, or is he?
Who? No, I'm sorry. Chris came, the Chris Seymour from the Key West Citizen was completely overwhelmed and just couldn't do it.
Okay, anyway. I'm Joe Moore, US 1 Radio. I've been here living in the Keys for 6 years, working at US 1 Radio ever since Bill Becker retired, which is what, 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago? I have my wife with me to keep me up to date on the dates and times and all that. But looking forward to this. Thanks a lot for coming out tonight.
Hi everyone, I'm Jennifer Hulse, Russo. I guess I represent the business sector of the panel. I have lived in Key West for about 15 years or so, and practiced law for 17 years. I started when I was 3, and the past few years I've kind of entered another realm, owning businesses in Key West. So I have experienced a little bit of everything, and I was actually on the Key West Citizen editorial board for a few years. So done a little bit of everything, but happy you're here, and I love doing this, so it's great to see everybody.
Thank you, guys. So we're starting off just as smooth as everything else of this event is going. For the Key West City Commission seat, Kim Highsmith called today and has COVID, so we only have one candidate here. But we don't want to take away from her time because of that. So the one rule I would say, though, is since Kim is not here to really respond or defend herself, it goes without saying, but we figured we'd put it out there anyway. Let's focus on your thoughts and ideas. So I figure we'll do a couple rounds quick, and then let you do a closing statement, and we'll move on. So, I believe so.
Test.
Yeah. I would say speak right into it, because you tend to speak light. Yeah.
Yes.
So Jennifer, why don't you start us off?
Okay. Cities have limited tools and resources to provide affordable workforce housing, and as we have seen, the problem has gotten much worse over the years and not better, and certainly hurricanes don't help. So if you're elected, what new initiatives would you bring to the City Commission to finally and adequately address this crucial problem? And specifically from the business community, how can the city support and incentivize businesses to help provide housing for their employees in a way that is feasible and sustainable for small business?
Can you repeat the first part of your question again, please? It was a long one.
I know, I tend to do that. Just what new initiatives would you bring to the City Commission with respect to affordable or workforce housing? The point was that we've been dealing with this for so many years. Like, if you're have fresh ideas, what are they in the aspect of affordable housing?
So to speak to affordable housing, I think that we have a lot of affordable housing units coming online in the very near future. We just had Records K come online. We've got the Garden View apartments coming on. We're redeveloping for public housing. We're looking at the redevelopment of Lane Million. So there are a lot of units coming online. The challenge that we are facing is that it is no longer affordable to build housing. So what happens is you have to start bringing in grant funding and things of that nature in order to bring down the cost of rent. And that starts to restrict your income limits. So we are squeezing that window of who is able to qualify to live in these affordable housing units. So I like to look at things from a different angle. I think that it's important that we make the city a little more affordable in general. How can we do that? Incentives for building things, like affordable housing for just homeowners. But I feel like we need to penalize less and incentivize more. We need to look at things like, I'll go quickly, the service industry is really struggling with the cost of parking downtown. So we're trying to build affordable housing for them, but then we're charging them on the other side. I mean, they're paying hundreds of dollars a month, some of them, for parking.
Thanks, Lisette.
You're welcome.
We'll get to more of it. And I think everybody in the room knows about the parking.
Yes.
They just had to figure it out.
Yes.
Let's talk about the cruise ship issue. That's something I think we're all pretty tired of hearing about, but it continues to go on. Is it something that the city needs to address, or should we just drop that and let what happens happen and move on to something that we actually can do?
Thank you, Joe. So again, the city has already voted, the people of the city have voted, and obviously it's the will of the people to have safer, cleaner ships. But if we narrow the conversation to only that, we are missing so many more things. I think we need to broaden the conversation to safer, cleaner waters and address that with things like cleaning up of derelict vessels. Mangrove cleanup is another major issue that we can look at and do something about right now without having to fight down the line and spend a lot of time. Those other things take time. Let's do things that we can affect change immediately. Derelict vessels, safer, cleaner waters, cleaning up the mangroves, and mooring balls. That's the other thing that I think if we get more people to be able to tie up to the mooring balls, we'll have less sewage pumping into our waters, and we can all use the beaches again. My family would like to do that. The last 2 times we've gone, we haven't been able to because of EPA warnings.
This question was going to be for both candidates, but obviously you'll be the only one. Both of you are new first-time candidates and political candidates, and my question was just what 2 names of people in town would you consider your top campaign advisors throughout this process?
That is a very good question that I don't know if I can say 2 in particular. I've got a great team of about 10 advisors that I speak to for different issues. Every one of them is knowledgeable in different areas, so I turn to them for what they are knowledgeable in specifically. So I guess it depends on what the subject matter is that you're talking about. I mean, are you talking about specific subject matters? Or
nothing specific, if there was just a
not generally, no ma'am.
Okay.
It's more of a team effort, and again, it depends on what those specific subject matters are. I'm not going to ask somebody who understands about water quality questions about safety and transportation. So I'm lucky that I have a great team of advisors, and they're all very, very smart in everything that they do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Jennifer.
After the next election cycle in 2 years, we'll have at least 3 new city commissioners, since our longest serving commissioners are termed out under the new city charter. If you were elected and you end up serving on a substantially new commission, what would you like to change about how the current commission operates, and what would you intend to do differently?
So one of the things that I've learned really personally in the last week since the storm is we have to communicate with each other and stop having less meetings and take more action. I'm just going to use the storm as an example. I probably sat in 2 or 3 Zoom meetings or in-person meetings, and they kept wanting to create committees and let's have another talk about it and let's come up with a plan and assessment, and we were trying to help people immediately in that moment and not take a lot of time to take action. So I think it's important to be able to communicate, be considerate of each other, because we're not just serving one type of people. So you have to consider everybody's opinion, everybody's way of doing things, so that you're serving the community as a whole. So I think just more communication, less divisiveness, and taking less time to do things. I think we need to speed up the process a little bit.
Joe?
We have a lot of issues in the city, which is a good thing, because otherwise we wouldn't have any questions for you here today. But I'm curious as to maybe some ideas you have about particular issues, a burning issue, if you will, that if you're elected, you'll want to hop on right away.
So again, over the last week, we've noticed that we've known that flooding is an issue. I live a block away from Lake McKillop, so we deal with, the tide coming up and the king tides all the time. It is particularly in my district a major issue on Flagler Avenue and Riviera Drive. I went door to door this weekend to check on people who had said I was the first person to show up, the only person they had seen so far. And I think that it is so important to address this flooding issue. There are homes who have lost absolutely everything. I've been very involved with the Bahama Village community because of my job, and we have properties down there through the Housing Authority. But in my particular district, flooding, community policing, bringing more resources from downtown into the communities, and safety in my neighborhood, and more green spaces and accessibility for the families to not have to drive all the way downtown again to use the parks. Truman Waterfront's awesome. I'd like to see a little more of that in our area for us to utilize.
Mandy.
And a lot of other stuff, but I feel him like breathing down my neck.
Mandy.
The city is currently, obviously, as you know, in the process of, they've hired a consultant and are in the process of revitalizing and redeveloping Mallory Square. There's an ongoing online survey asking residents and visitors what they want from Mallory Square. What would your priorities be for it? And also, how would you work to implement or fund any plan that the Sasaki group comes up with, and so it doesn't just become another report on a shelf?
So I've been very much focused on my district because that's where, you know, my voters and my constituents are right now, and it doesn't really seem to be a concern for them. That's not at the top of their list of priorities right now is Mallory Square. I mean, from a personal standpoint, which to me doesn't matter too much because again, it's the will of the people that you have to represent, but you know, the vendors down at Mallory Square, I think let's not lose the uniqueness and the kitschiness of Key West and try to make it too mainstream. People come here because we're different. So let's try not to make things too much like every other town. But again, I haven't really spoken much about that to my constituents because it's not really a concern for the families they're not thinking about that or talking about that right now. Sorry, I couldn't answer more.
That's fine. That's 2 full rounds, so I mean, it seems odd, but how about a couple minute
Okay.
closing statement or?
Okay.
And I'll make it
somewhere around
brief because I have to get back to work. I'm working on the hurricane relief quite a bit. So I just want to say, you know, on November 8th, please go out and vote. I'm taking questions all the time, 305-797-6800 to get a hold of me. And my focuses are, you know, working families, my brain is like working families, our seniors, the youth of the community, and then the business community as well. I've got experience in all realms of you know what I'm speaking of. I have direct government experience. I've worked for the city for 7 years. I think I've said that enough times now, but I do really know how to go through the process to get things done. You know, I understand the mechanics of getting things from an idea to a resolution, to bringing it before the commission and then deciding are we going to do it or not, and let's move on. So, I don't know, there's a lot to talk about, so please call me, go to my website, check on my Facebook page. I'm very active on that, and I'm happy to answer any questions, and I'm here to listen to the people and see what the will is of the people and what they would like.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
We get Jim Mooney and Adam Gentle come up. Also, there's a few seats up here in the front. If you were bad in class, you're used to it, so I know it's pretty tight in the back. But you're the Republican, sit on the right. I'm a Republican, I get to say But now there's seats in the back as well. So.
We got more for you.
Hopefully this is a very quick call. Okay, see this goes along with everything else of this event. Never had a candidate get a call.
At least it's not God.
What was the candidate who could call from God?
Oh, that was Sloan Brzezinski. I mean, you're right. Sloan did. So now I got to talk to him tomorrow and tell him that his name came up again. Yeah, Sloan took a call from God. Yeah, actually, brief commercial. Derek?
Hi everyone, I'm Derek Tabor. I'm on the board of Hometown and the board of the Tropic here, so we hope to do more events here, but Tropic gave us this space for free. They're very generous to do so. Sorry, the Carper, we lost the projector in here, so that's why we weren't in the Carper. They had to move us in here, but the movie industry, along with the pandemic, has really shaken things up. People are going to the movies less. There's less stuff coming out. We're trying to adapt the theater to tastes of the community more and give more options for people. So please, if you like the Tropic, you like coming to the movies, bring your mom, bring your friend, come see a movie, buy some popcorn, get a bottle of wine. It'll go a long way. And if you want to see the Tropic, continue to be a part of our community. So thank you for coming.
Perfect, thank you, Derek. Now, where were we? So, this is for State House. We're gonna go right into it. Why don't you, Joe, your first question.
Okay, first I have a question, and anybody can answer this, even somebody in the crowd here.
No, that was the joke. You guys-
No, really, it's about the election process, and with Ian, I mean, is there a possibility that some of the rules could change, or dates could change for early voting, mail-in voting, and is there any precedent? Has this ever happened before? A hurricane before an election?
Do you guys know? Do you have either of you have an answer? Or,
I believe in Florida.
well, use the microphone, Adam.
Yeah, I mean, we've had this happen up into like a day before an election in the past, but I think another like larger example is to look at New York City, September 11th. They were in the middle of primaries and they didn't stop. So as long as we can get those ballots out to the voters, I don't think that we'll see a delay in the election.
Okay.
No, I think Adam's right on that. I don't think there'll be a delay. Not in our area, anyway. Obviously, the West Coast is a different story.
Mandy?
All right. Do I ask each candidate a question, or?
We have a lot of latitude tonight.
Okay.
You're in Todd's closet, so you can do whatever you
So I'll ask both candidates the same question. Hey, your closet's still bigger than my apartment, so it's all right. I don't know who goes first, whichever you can pick, Todd, but no, I just lost my. So the 2020 census was supposed to initiate a new evacuation model for the Florida Keys. Do you feel as if the Keys should adhere to the current 24-hour evacuation policy, or should it be changed to up to 36 hours, given some of our stronger building codes and new construction?
Why don't you start, Jim, and go down.
That's a great question. The problem with the evacuation number, the hours, is that there's a fear amongst many local officials and locals, stem to stern in this county, that by extending those hours out, you're going to open the door for more construction. More construction leads to more traffic. We know that ROGO is the issue. We know that ROGO was put in place a very long time ago, and our infrastructure has been built out basically to 2023. Now, as far as the emergency aspect of that, obviously, it's panned out very well for us, not so well for South Florida. The reality of it is, people need to keep in mind that that cone is not where it's going to hit. It's a 200-mile plus or minus error. So if you're anywhere touching or even near a cone, you should be prepared to be out of here. Whether it's 24 hours, 48 hours, or 72 hours. But as far as the overall extending of that, I don't know, as a former local official, I don't know that you're going to get much support for extending it out to enhance more permits.
Right.
Adam, thoughts?
Yeah, so I think the underlying issue here is, how things have changed in the past decade since the first census. So I think you put good data in, you get a good product out, bad data, bad product. So I'm more concerned with figuring out how long does it actually take for us to evacuate the Florida Keys if a storm is coming with the population that we have in the time of year that we have hurricanes. And I don't think that's what we're looking at. So ROGO is a separate issue. It does exist, but if we're talking about evacuation time, we need to be focused on the safety of Floridians. That's number one. And I don't think that's what we're looking at, and that's a problem.
Jennifer.
This question, I guess, can be for both of you. We've experienced a dramatic increase in the amount of seaweed known as sargassum that's rotting along the shores in the hottest part of the summer, which creates a terrible odor and has all kinds of health impacts as well. So what regional and state initiatives would you consider to help solve this problem for the coastline of the Florida Keys and beyond?
Adam, why don't you go first?
Well, I think we need representation in Tallahassee that is truly committed to the environment and passing legislation that mitigates the harm that we've done to the environment and addresses our current issues and sets us up on a path for a more environmentally friendly future. Unfortunately, that isn't what we've had in the past couple of years and in the past decades. I think the situation that you're talking about requires first a study to figure out how do we address this problem, what's the proper way to mitigate it without doing more harm. Many times here in Florida, so if we look at the Everglades, right, when we try to address a specific problem, we end up creating another problem that's even worse than the problem that we started with. So let's focus in on the problem, figure out scientifically what we need to do, address it and move on, but to do that we need funding and dedicated leadership, and that's what we're missing.
Jim?
It's a great question. First of all, Sargassum Sea is a very large area in the Atlantic Ocean, and that you're not going to mitigate the Sargassum Sea in and of itself. Having grown and lived here my entire life, I can tell you there's less seaweed here now than there ever used to be. The good thing is no tar balls in it, but it used to be even worse than it is now. The fact is, more of us smell it now than the old days. That's the issue. You saw Miami Beach deal with it 2 summers ago at the tune of $300,000+ a day to keep those beaches clean. That's not sustainable. The reality of it is, you talk bubbler systems off the shorelines. That's great for your house and somebody else's house, and not so great for somebody else's house on the outside that bubbler system. So there is no one-time fix-all. It really has nothing to do with Tallahassee at all. It has to do with the environment and where we live. This is part of where we live. Again, now there was a time in the past we had no sargassum weed. And what we had? We had no fish. We had no dolphins showing up on our shorelines in the summers. They were mining the Sargo Sea for dog food filler. Pure protein. Makes sense. These things are not, you're not going to fix this in Tallahassee. You're not going to fix this in Washington. You're going to fix this by having to deal with the realities of what it is. And that's going to take local incentives to clean the beaches up. Where we find the money, Mayor Johnston would tell you that that's going to be the most difficult part that there is to do, is to find the money to make day-to-day life a little better. But Sargassum Sea is not going away. It's just not going away.
Thanks, Jim.
Just one quick response there.
Very, very quick.
Unless Mr. Mooney is aware of another source,
Sure.
I believe the money comes from Tallahassee. So that's where we have to start.
Well, go ahead and mention my name. No, there's no money from Tallahassee based on the Sargassum Sea. I'm sorry, that just doesn't exist. That's not reality. That's a pipe dream. The Sargassum Sea covers tens of thousands of square miles.
Let's move on. Joe?
Let's talk about the insurance sea. Ian,
That'll be a lot easier.
yeah, Ian is going to rock the insurance industry, which is already chaotic at best. Jim, you've been in Tallahassee for 2 years. You've heard suggestions that have been made and maybe are privy to some ideas that may be coming. And for Adam, what would you bring to the table to help fix what is a very critical part of all of our lives here?
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, the insurance industry is just an absolute disaster. There's nobody in this room or across the state of Florida that doesn't recognize that. This is not a Monroe County issue. This is a state of Florida issue. I promise you, it's stem to stern, side to side. In 21, we passed a good bill which reduced changed the tort reform, which is, Adam's an attorney. He knows way more about how the law works, but the reality of it is, every bill that we've passed to make the insurance companies drop a little bit, has all been brought into litigation. All the bills that passed bipartisanly are now in litigation. We stepped on the wrong toes. We stepped on the attorney's toes. And that's just the reality of it. And until we can figure out how to get past the lawsuits, there is not going to be a quick fix in Tallahassee. There's not going to be a quick fix in Washington. There's just not going to be a quick fix. There are some thought processes. Self-insured Monroe County, I've heard that for the better part of 30 years of my life. So Monroe County self-insured. There's all kinds of crazy things out there, but the reality of it always boils down to money. But how we get there, we have to take the legalese out of it, and that's not going to be an easy task.
I think you have to break it up into a couple of pieces. The first issue is we don't have an insurance market anymore. And the reason we don't have an insurance market is because Citizens, our insurer of last resort, has become the insurer of first resort for many Floridians. And we've squeezed the private market such that in this present situation that we have in Lee County, insurers are collapsing today. Citizens is undercutting the market by 50%. So we have to reinvigorate our market, reintroduce competition, and make sure that Citizens truly is the insurer of last resort. the next part of this is, if you talk to firm here about, solutions for the insurance crisis, the real problem is corruption from stem to stern. It's corruption in claims, it's corruption in rackets between builders and insurance companies. That needs to be investigated. And I think that there's also something with the time frame of filing claims. It used to be 5 years, now we've got it down to 3 years. But I think if you have an insurance claim on a hurricane, you can probably figure that out within a year. I mean, I'm sure some people in this room have already filed their claims for the hurricane that just happened. So there are things that we need to do to make our system less corrupt and also have a more vigorous market. And really that stuff isn't that complicated, so I don't understand why we're not able to do it. We had a special session this summer to try to solve this problem, put $2 billion into CAP. That money's already gone. This is going to be the first issue that we deal with when we arrive in Tallahassee in November, so thank you.
Mandy.
This is a question that was submitted. They provided us questions that were submitted by hometown members, so I want to make sure I get to some of those tonight. And this question was specifically for Representative Mooney. In your radio ads leading up to the primary, you referred to Democrats as being lawless, among other things. Do you believe Democrats are lawless? Can you give examples of this lawless behavior, and can you explain how you can represent all residents of District 120 if and when you believe half of them are lawless?
Well, I do not remember the lawless part of it, to be honest with you. Nor do I not believe that Democrats are lawless. I have tons of Democratic friends, tons, not only locally, but in Tallahassee, who I've sat with, who are very good people. The reality of it is, primaries are one of the most ugliest things known to man. You didn't see very many nice primaries around the state of Florida on television. You didn't hear them on the radio. Do I think Adam's a lawless guy? Absolutely not. He has been nothing but an absolute gentleman from the first day I met him, and I will stand behind that 100%. Look, it's about getting elected for our parties first, and then we get to come out and do it. No, I saw the shaking the head, and I don't disagree, but you have to get elected in primaries to get to where you want to be. And that's the reality. Now, I don't think all Democrats are bad, obviously not. My son is an MPA, my sister is a Democrat, for God's sakes. No, I don't care who you are. I represent everybody. I represent those that vote for me, represent those that don't vote for me, and represent those that don't vote at all. And that's the scary part.
Thank you.
Actually, Adam, he said really nice stuff about you. You don't get to respond.
But he also said some things that just simply weren't true. And that is that it's impossible to have a clean primary. We did have a beautiful primary. We respected each other, we respected the outcome. So to say that's impossible, I disagree, and I think that's a harm to our democracy. Second, I think it's important that you know what your ads say. So if you say,
we don't have the ad here. I mean,
Okay.
I think that's a rabbit hole I don't want to go down, because that's
Fair.
sort of
I'll leave it
hearsay
there if we can
from
move on.
what somebody wrote in, and I can't say it's one way or another. So, but it was interesting question and answers. So, Jennifer, or I think it's Jennifer.
So in Key West and most parts of the state and the country, our energy bills have nearly doubled in the past 6 months. This on top of inflation and a lack of affordable housing is going to continue to push residents out of the Florida Keys. I'm curious about, especially with Adam, I know you have a strong environmental background. We primarily drive most of our energy here from natural gas and fossil fuels. And there's seems to be no regulation or anything that's being done to force our power companies to invest in natural resources or in natural other forms, alternative forms of energy. Do you see anything at the state level that can be done to when you're in a situation where power companies aren't doing it, to force them to look at alternative forms of energy and invest in those forms of energy instead of just relying on one?
just to clarify the issue, so yeah, 98% of our power comes from natural gas, 2% from solar, and I think that just simply doesn't make sense in a place where we have sunshine almost 365 days a year. So that tells you that underlying here, we have a problem. And I think the problem is in the Keys, we're contractually obligated to purchase all of our energy from FPL. So even if we did come up with a great solar solution, we're still obligated by quote unquote evergreen contracts, which I think are corrupt, to buy all our energy, again, from from FPL. And I'm sure the representative can speak to this better because he actually did vote for legislation written by FPL that did limit our ability to use solar and made solar less appealing for residents to invest in. So first, we have to create the incentives for the residents. We have to not be locked to FPL. We have to be encouraged to be bold and to come up with new ideas. I know north of us on the co-op, they've done a huge thing where they had a field and you could essentially do like a condo type solar structure. So like you couldn't have solar on your roof, but you'd buy this piece. They had a hard time actually selling it, but I think if we actually could sell that back into the grid and actually get paid for it, and not get, I was gonna say screwed, but I wouldn't use that word because it's not appropriate. Good thing you did that. I think more people would do it. So I think Representative Mooney better explain.
Yeah, having sat on the Florida Keys Electric Co-op Board for a number of years, yeah, we are contractually obligated to FP&L. They certainly can renegotiate that at any time. I'm not sure that's going to turn out real well. The reality of it is FP&L has over 32 million solar panels in the state of Florida, and NextGen is the largest supplier of solar energy in the world at this point. The problem we have is that we're right now paying, based on the contracts that the co-op has and pass through the Key West, because obviously you have generation plan here, but you don't generate your own electricity for all practical purpose unless it's an emergency. It passes through a co-op, comes into Key West through Keys Energy. That was structured back, I believe, in 37-ish, 39-ish with the co-op, based on fuel. And year in and year out, fuel has historically been the cheapest form to produce electricity, but the reality of it is most of our electricity is probably coming out of Turkey Point. That's the reality of it. The solar panel issue has also reared its ugly head, in case of those of you that don't know about it. You're now being dropped if you have solar panels on your house by your insurance companies, because there's no structural engineering when they're attached. So that's created another monster. I'm not against solar energy at all. Are you kidding me? It's like, I agree 100%. It's like it should be a no-brainer. I believe in tidal. I believe in tidal energy. Again, the environmental group will not go along with that. It's also, you're going to end up killing tons of little baby fish and blah, blah, blah. The reality of it is, energy is not a simple industry to understand. It's not a simple industry to regulate. And I do think this country ultimately is moving forward. It's just not going to be fast enough for any of us, unfortunately.
I'd like to respond to some factual problems.
No, the audience has, well, that's your facts and his, we'll let the audience
Objective facts, but
argue with me. Yeah. Joe, let's move on.
Jim, looking back over your 2 years in Tallahassee, what do you think are among your biggest achievements?
But I think, first of all, what's important to remember and understand about the position, we're basically tasked to represent the stakeholders within the district. So if Mayor Johnston has an appropriation or she has a need, if the county commission has needs, they are usually coming directly from the citizens to them to be relayed back to the Tallahassee constituents. Senator Rodriguez will do the same thing in Washington, D.C. The accomplishments are, first and foremost, we all know the stewardship money is the single largest thing Monroe County must have to continue to work on this environmental issues. We brought home $40 million in 2 years, a total of $80 million in the first term. Yeah, I'm very proud of that. Somebody said to me during a thing that, you know what, who cares? How hard is that? It's very hard. We've been very blessed, by the way, and I tell people, do not hold your breath. The economy will not continue to run at warp speed forever. It will slow down. It will come crawling back, and there won't be $40 million or a guaranteed $20 million. So there are a lot of accomplishments out there. I mean, there were some great bills passed, the city of Key West with workforce housing, working with the sheriff's office. That was something you had to explain to those that are going to vote on it. Remember, it's not a five-person commission. It's not a 10-person commission. It's 120 people. So you got to change a whole bunch of votes. You got to make them understand why we need these things in Monroe County. It's not easily done, but I have the institutional knowledge and my lifelong history here.
Thanks. Actually, are you up, Joe?
I was going to ask Adam a question as well. Not the same one, obviously, because it wouldn't apply. But one of the things you talked about was small business, helping small businesses. Here in Key West and throughout the Keys, we're losing businesses because they don't have people, because they can't afford to live. What other things do you see as being problems for small businesses? Is it a local, a state, a federal thing? What can be done to help these people?
We're talking about the workforce issue. I think this is a combination of a local, state, and federal problem. And I think again you need to break it into a couple of pieces. But it's also important just to like get the scope of this here. This isn't unique to Monroe County. In our District 120, folks in Homestead are dealing with the exact same thing. So and it goes back to affordable housing. So the first thing that we need to do is get insurance rates under control so people can afford to actually live in a place. They can buy a house, pay a mortgage, and pay their insurance and live there. We need to bring energy rates down by diversifying our sources of energy. So we're not paying a huge percentage of our income in energy, and bring that down, and the housing costs come down. I mean, the free market will work if we let it work, but we've gotten in the way with so much baloney, and we've been so derelict in our duties, focusing on issues that don't affect, that don't help the lives of Floridians. That we're not just doing this. We're not even doing the simple things that we could be doing to try to make that situation a bit better. The other part of this is, I think it's critical that Tallahassee not preempt local laws when it comes to Airbnbs and
Mandy, this is probably the last question, and then
Okay.
we'll give you guys some time to do a closing statement.
Okay, this is for both candidates. What are your thoughts on Florida's recently passed abortion restriction? And if you do believe that life begins at conception, please explain how that is a religious, how that is or is not a religious distinction.
Adam, why don't you start?
I think that it's disgusting that any politician in Tallahassee thinks that they have a place in the doctor's office when a woman and her doctor are making one of the most difficult decisions that she will ever make in her life. Now, the solution here, hopefully, is that thankfully in our Constitution here in Florida, we do have a right to privacy. That's something we seem to have lost in our federal Constitution. In Florida, it's actually written out. So it's my position that based on our Constitution, any regulation on a woman's body by Tallahassee is unconstitutional. Unfortunately, the situation that we have right now is so repugnant that a victim of rape or incest would be forced to carry the fetus to term because representatives like Mr. Mooney think that they know better than the mother. And that's not how I feel. Thank you.
Yeah, I did vote for the abortion bill, you're correct. I do not think that I know what a mother or a wife or a daughter knows. I struggled with that bill greatly. 18 weeks, 15 weeks. I started doing a god-awful amount of research, and I can tell you that a woman's right to privacy is absolutely the most important thing, as is any person's right to privacy at any level. The reality of it is that if in fact, as the sponsor of the bill said, if in fact there are underlying issues, a woman can get an abortion at any time. That's their right. It's there. It'll take 2 doctors. It'll take a number of different scenarios. But that doesn't make it right or wrong. That just makes it what it is today. And honestly, this has been going on since I was in high school. It's sort of repugnant that we're even discussing it at this level in 2022. When No. The fact that this is still an issue when in fact it was settled, but the Supreme Court has obviously turned this thing upside down.
Ma'am, stop.
Yeah, my job is to look at the facts and deal with them, and it's not a subject that is going to be easily satisfied. You're not going to make anybody happy in this. There are no happy people in this at all. There are those that believe, those that don't believe, and there's somewhere in the middle. That's the reality. Yeah, it's a very difficult thing, but I voted the way I voted.
Hey, everyone, ma'am, we've been through this before. I know this is a hot subject, but we're not doing that. This is the candidate's time, not your time. And ma'am in the black, please stop it. Well, or then go outside. Be good. We're almost...
This is for us, it's not for them.
Yes, but it's for them to talk, and not for you guys to act up.
So we're going to closing statements, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I think it's really important that when a politician does something or says they're going to do something, they do it. So it's baffling to me how someone could vote to restrict a woman's access to health care and then go on the radio time and time again and come here today and sit down and tell women in this room that, hey, don't worry, there's a workaround. It's just ridiculous. If this were heart care, if we had heart disease, and Mr. Mooney decided the procedure was, because of his whatever, unethical, we wouldn't tell the patient, oh, don't worry about that one. We're going to give you the workaround. This is healthcare, bottom line, and women deserve it, and you have no business regulating it. And it's not repugnant that we're dealing with it, because you and your colleagues raised the issue.
Yes.
You wrote the bill. You did it. Okay, in closing, my name is Adam Gentle. I'm a Democrat running for House District 120. I've spent my career working as a lawyer, investigating corruption in companies, in businesses where there's bribery and kickbacks at that nexus between government and business. And I think we have a hell of a lot of corruption in Tallahassee, and I think that's evident here today. And we need to send someone to Tallahassee that's willing to fight for what's right, for what they believe in, and for our future. Let's be bold. Let's be fresh. Let's come up with new ideas, new solutions for the next generation, and not be stuck in ideas that are 30 and 40 years old, because that's all we know. Thank you.
Well, when you get to Tallahassee, you don't think about a whole lot of things except getting what's done first, and that's what you're requested to do at the beginning. I personally have not seen corruption in Tallahassee. You will never make everybody happy, period. I've heard it over and over through the campaign. I'm going to do what the citizens say. Well, which 45% is that going to be that you're going to work for? That's the reality and how it really goes down. I have no preconceived ideas. Listen, I'm a guy that grew up in the Florida Keys, love where I live. I have 2 beautiful granddaughters. I have a passion to help those where I live, and that's what I've done. Will you make the right call every time, regardless of what the topic is? Absolutely not. And you're not going to go to Tallahassee and change the system overnight. You can sit here and you can fight the fight. And by the way, I respect everybody. You watch any meeting, you'll see me sit in that chamber while 2/3 of that chamber is empty, and you'll see me sitting there, listening to those on the other side, listening to my own party. I want to find out all the facts and make sure that I have the best available facts to base my decision on. I'm not a guy that pushes the green button just to push the green button. I told everybody that 2 years ago, I'll say it again. If that's the guy you're looking for, isn't me. I'm not going to push the green button because that's the way it is. I stood for what I stood for. I voted against the infamous 1557 bill, for those that don't know what that is. That's the infamous gay bill. That was a bill that was not where it needed to be. Not where it needed to be. I took a lot of heat on that in case you guys missed all those television ads and all those radio ads. But you know what? I slept well that night. I slept very well that night. I was a former teacher. I understand what those teachers have to go through. So I'm here to represent you. Whether you vote for me or not, I'm going to represent you. I'm going to listen to the elected officials around me, who actually are the ones that drive this train in the reality of it. And I do appreciate Adam's desire to change it. I do. I was there once in the local government, and I thought we were going to change the world. It doesn't work like that. So I'm Jim Mooney. I respectfully ask for your vote on November 8th. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Adam. Now our U.S. House candidates, please. Where are... Oh, they're there. Come on up, guys. All right, this is our third and last event of the night. Never said that before. As before, we'll get right into it. And again, I assume some controversial subjects will come up. Applause are fine, but silence says a lot too. And so let's stick with applause and silence, please. Respect these two gentlemen. Which one of you guys, Jennifer, you're up? Let's get right to it. Okay.
Let's talk about a little bit about immigration, which I think we can all agree is probably a mess in this country. We in the Florida Keys see this a lot. We have Cuban chug squad coming up on our shores. We also have a worker crisis. We have a lot of jobs and not enough people to fill them. So I'm interested from the candidates, would you be interested in changes to the immigration system, specifically that would allow working, even undocumented immigrants, a right to at least work and stay in the United States, and maybe potentially a path to citizenship?
Let's start. Robert, why don't you start?
Good evening. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Robert Asensio, running to be your next congressman in NFL, or Congressional District 28. So yes, I believe that we must document those that come in. I believe our system, first of all, I'll go back and say that our system is, the immigration process has been broken. It's been played by both sides of the aisle, mainly the GOP. I will tell you that there's much more work that we must do, but allowing people to be here and not give them an opportunity to work is actually immoral on my part. Some of these people pay taxes, all of these people are paying taxes, and a lot of them are dealing with the issues that impact each and every one of us. So I believe that there must be change, and I'm willing to work with each and every one out there that wants to get change done.
Carlos.
Thank you, and I believe that we can reach some kind of accord with comprehensive immigration reform after we secure the border. And the problem is that we don't have a secure border. When you have over 2 million people crossing into the United States illegally, apprehended, those are the ones we apprehend. There's another 1 million people that actually cross that we know about. We don't know who they are, where they're going, what they're doing, etc., because of the Biden administration's policies, which changed the Trump administration's policy that had to reduce this kind of flow by 90%. But that's one issue. The other issue is we're enriching the Mexican cartels. They're making over $1 billion a month off human trafficking. That's immoral. Over 750 immigrants have died at the Mexican border. That's immoral. We need to send a clear message that, hey, we want immigration, but we want legal immigration. We've now apprehended 4 times the number of migrants trying to come to the United States at sea. So now it's an issue here in the Keys, and it's an issue here in my hometown of Miami-Dade County. So the entire system is broken. The entire system started to be broken day one when the Biden administration changed the Trump administration border policies, and now we have this flood of folks coming into the country that aren't allowed to work, that are enriching the people that are killing our kids, which is the Mexican drug cartels through their fentanyl, which is killing over 100,000 people a year here in the United States. Over 300 people are dying from the fentanyl crisis, all funneled and funded through the Mexican cartel. Thank you.
So can I answer just one quick point? One quick point.
Very quick.
Okay. So he talks about those that are illegal here. So we document them, we know who they are. I spent a career in law enforcement. You need to know who's here in this country. Go after the cartel, work with the Mexican authorities, but let's face it, I do not believe, nor do I agree with, using taxpayer dollars to solicit immigrants from Texas to transport them
we're
after billion.
getting off.
That is the wrong way to address immigration.
Joe.
So the border.
I agree.
Hang on, he did.
The right way to address immigration is to secure the border and have legal immigration. That's the right way. Then we can start discussing what we're going to do with the immigrants that are coming and the immigrants that are here, because we're not going to be deporting 20 million people. We're not. We need to get them out of the shadows, but you can't have the discussion until you actually secure the border.
No, we're going to move on to the next question.
Okay, I'm going to stay on the same topic, and that is the border. Well, it's a big deal, okay? We're hearing stories of the southwest border. People are flooding across there daily, hundreds, thousands. We're seeing it right here in our backyard, and people are dying trying to get across the Florida Straits to get here. How did we get to this point? What happened to get us
And just to be
to this
clear,
point?
I don't care if we talk about immigration the whole time. I'm just trying to cut the time up per panelist. So go ahead, Carlos.
We got to this point because there was a change in the administrative policy of how we dealt at the border. Before, with President Trump, we had a remain in Mexico policy. And here are the facts. Here are the facts, right? Before, when you had a remain in Mexico policy, the people that were filing for asylum claims were left in Mexico, then they had their asylum claims. 10% were actually approved and allowed to enter the United States. The other 90% were not. When the Biden administration changed the policy to have them on this side of the border, it was a signal that 100% of the people that are crossing the border are going to get into the United States. That incentivized all the people in Central and South America, Cuba, Haiti, to come through the southern border, come because this administration will let you in. That was the cause of what's happening now at the southern border. The change in the policy, that's exactly what happened.
Robert, your thoughts?
Liar, liar, pants on fire.
The reason why we get here is because this issue's been politicized, and rather than addressing it appropriately, we continue to divide, stoke fear, and get farther away from consensus, bipartisanship, which is what it takes to work out a solution. Now, I've been on the border. As a matter of fact, after 9/11, I spent 4 years working with Homeland Security, training on the border. I see people crossing the border. Okay? Think about what it would take for somebody to cross the border, go through the desert, walk hundreds of miles at times. They want a better life. Now, I don't agree with illegal immigration or unlawful entry. We want a lawful system. What the congressman doesn't mention is under the last administration, immigration programs such as the immigrant resettlement program was eviscerated. The funding was cut. Why? To continue to stoke the issues, continue to hit emotions. We see a problem here because our foreign policy needs to be addressed. We need to work with other countries to protect our interests abroad. And that, as long as we're partisan, as long as we're blaming an administration, and all we're doing is voting against that administration, we will never be able to find a solution to the problem. And it is costing our taxpayers. But I will tell you, law enforcement's strong, it's good. Border Patrol needs to be able to protect it, better funded, excuse me. And we need to address these issues with appropriate funding, which
Thank you,
we're
Robert.
not.
He wasn't really specific, and we just to go over the rules again. If you guys mention each other, you're just giving the other one more time. So, just Mandy.
I see your name there.
Mandy.
This is another member-submitted question regarding student loan debt forgiveness. Those in favor of debt forgiveness say that big debt keeps people from starting families, buying homes, making other large purchases, and contributing to the local economy. Do you think reducing student loans for those earning less than $125,000 a year is good for America? How does one rationalize bailing out corporations and industries, claiming that it trickles down to the worker, but not help teachers, medical technicians, or
Robert, you
social
start.
workers by forgiving $10,000 to $20,000 in student loans?
Wow. Well, we certainly don't address it by voting against something that would help people. I just paid off my student loan. For anybody here that has advanced degrees, anybody knows that has a degree, has debt, knows how taxing it is on a person's life. We know that colleges, universities, and financial programs that loan the money can be considered predators. Yes, they are predators because they don't provide the relief to the students who have the debt. Now, I must say that our district covers University, FIU, Florida International University, Miami-Dade College, and yet we carry the most amount of debt, Keys College. Why would we not want our students, our future workforce, an opportunity to improve and contribute to the economy when those corporations and those banking institutions are taking their dollars and indebting them at times for life? That is wrong. We need to work for those, our future workforce, if we want to improve our society.
Carlos.
Yes, I voted against it, and I voted against it because it's going to add to the national debt. Now that it started out as a $300 billion, maybe $300 to $500 billion cost. Now the estimates are it's going to be $1 trillion. Now, if you all don't know what $1 trillion is, if you put $1 trillion end on end, how far do you think that goes? Around the world? How about from here to the moon? No. Here to Mars? No. It goes to the sun. 92 million miles. That's how much $1 trillion is. And this administration has spent over $4 trillion. That puts us in debt, and more importantly, puts our children, the very people that we're supposed to be helping, it puts our children and our grandchildren in a mountain of debt that they're going to have to pay in the future. And yes, what do you say to all those people that have paid off their student loans? And what do you say to all those people that earn, or families that earn less than $250,000 a year, because a family that earns $250,000 a year also is eligible to get their student loan paid off. As a matter of fact, 70% of the loans are paid off by people are actually been forgiven, are going to be for people that make over $100,000 a year. So, I'm sorry, while I see the problem with kids, probably what we need to be focusing in on is the high cost of higher education. And why is it that higher education now costs since the 70s, has gone up 5 times the rate of inflation? Why is that?
Thanks, Carlos.
Thank you.
Jennifer.
Natural disasters happen all over the country, right? We have hurricanes here, other places have mudslides and wildfires and all kinds of different events of nature. Everybody deals with a different maze of insurance and funding programs. I'm just curious, can there be a talk about some kind of a national, I don't know what you would call it, fund or insurance that could help with national disasters? Because it affects the whole country. It doesn't just affect us when we have a hurricane, it affects everybody. So can there be some change or something that would be a big idea up there that's floating around?
Yeah, I think that we need to discuss that after what's happened with Ian and the other natural disasters that we're having. Heaven forbid if something happens in California with an earthquake, that's going to be off the charts, all right? And so we've had increasing cost of natural disasters because we live on the coastline. And so, look, the 1926 hurricane that hit Miami, if it hits today, the same hurricane, all right? It only costs about $100 million. If it hits the same hurricane hits today, it's going to be $150 to $200 billion. The same hurricane, all right? And so the question is not when, it's not if, it's when. And so, yeah, I believe it's time that we have a discussion of how we're going to protect our citizens in those areas that are prone to natural disasters. For God's sake, we just spent $4 trillion on a bunch of other stuff. Yeah, I think we need to find some money in order to help those folks with their insurance costs.
Robert, thoughts?
So we have 3 branches of government, co-equal branches of government. Legislature creates law, right? You can't just say it's all the executive office's fault. People in Congress need to act. If you don't agree on policies, you introduce solutions. If you don't agree with a bill, you can amend and introduce amendments. Our congressman voted against disaster relief. This is a county that's connected by bridges, about 42 bridges if I'm not wrong. What happens if one of those bridges goes down during the next storm? We need to, yes, invest in solutions, resilience, and if we talk about the debt that we're going to be in, think about the opposite side, the consequences of a bridge going down. Just like all these students with student debt, that's money that's not going in the economy. So rather than just saying we need solutions, we need to introduce legislation. And I don't see that happening.
Yes, you get to discuss the vote against.
Well, first of all, that's a continuing resolution that I voted against. It wasn't new money. It was money that I already voted for, $17 billion for FEMA. What they wanted to do, they wanted to access it right now, give the bureaucrats the ability to access that money right now. No. Now they can access it the way we normally access it, but I'm going to be working with the Florida delegation in a bipartisan manner to introduce legislation that's Ian specific to the issues that happen with Florida and other areas affected by this hurricane, and give that authority to FEMA, not the $17, $18 billion that they were already allocated.
Was that Joe?
There was a recent story, Congressman Jimenez led a group of 50 other congressmen signing a letter that was sent to the White House concerning the Chinese government purchasing land adjacent to an Air Force base in North Dakota, Grand Forks, North Dakota. Obviously, Congressman, you see a problem with that. No, were there any Democrats that signed that letter at all?
Let's, is this for the congressman?
Well, it's for both. I want to get a question.
Well,
But first, I want to pose the question as to why didn't any Democrats go with that? Do you see a problem with that?
It's Robert's turn. I'm just
Okay,
trying
all
to
right,
be
yeah.
fair,
Do you
so.
see a problem with the Chinese government buying land adjacent to an Air Force base?
I think the question, whereas I'm not in Congress and I'm not part of the caucus, I can't speak for the members of Congress, but I can only speak for myself. And whereas I'm a Democrat, if Democrats put forward a piece of policy that I don't agree with, that does not benefit my constituent base, I will go against it. Do we have a problem with foreign countries? Even foreign enemies, if we're going to be honest. Encroaching on our domestic security? Yes, we do. But to answer your question as to why Democrats did not sign, we'd have to ask the people who were there and decided not to. Do we need to address this issue? Without a shadow of a doubt. After 9/11, again, I spent 4 years working and training with Homeland Security to protect our homeland. I've sworn an oath to this country in the military, in law enforcement. I believe in our country, in protecting our foreign assets and domestic assets. So yes, I can't answer your question specifically because I wasn't there. Maybe the congressman can, without going partisan.
Well, the Democrats normally go in a block. And so there's moderate Democrats and more liberal Democrats, but when they vote, they actually vote in a block. And then I've seen them time and time again. And so, no Democrats joined the letter. Yes, it is a great concern of mine that we have companies that have ties to the Chinese Communist Party that are purchasing land close to very sensitive military installations. And I don't think they're doing that, to be nice people. All right, I think China poses the greatest existential threat to the United States, our security, our future. By the year 2049, they want to be the dominant economic power of the world. By the year 2049, they want to be the dominant military power of the world. And why is it 2049? 100-year anniversary of the revolution. That's why. And that's what we're facing, folks. We are facing, an enemy that wants to dominate the world. And I don't know about you, but I don't want my children or grandchildren to live in a world that's dominated by the Chinese Communist Party. I fled Cuba. My parents came here for a reason, all right? And if that somehow now becomes the dominant force in the world, where are we going to go? And so, yeah, I'm going to fight, tooth and nail against any intrusion and any influence of the Chinese Communist Party here in the United States and around the world.
Can you just, one piece without hitting the congressman?
No, we're moving on. We had your,
I think they deserve to hear.
you had your opportunity and he had his. We're moving to the next question. Mandy.
Okay, for both candidates, are you in favor of term limits and/or mandatory retirement age for Congress and the presidency?
Carlos, you first.
Look, I'm not in favor of mandatory retirement ages because we're biologically different. Some people are more capable at advanced ages than others, okay? And so, no, I don't believe in that at all. It's age discrimination as far as I'm concerned. You have to demonstrate, your capability. If you can demonstrate that capability, I'm fine with it. As far as term limits, there is a thing called term limits called elections. Elections term you out, all right? And in this particular district, we've had this thing flipped 4 or 5 times. And so the people determine the term limit of the people that they elect. And so no, I'm not a huge fan of term limits.
Robert.
I'm with the congressman. I don't agree with age. However, I do agree that we need to reconsider term limits in the Congress. Because whereas we have a democratic process, other parts of the country will only vote one person or one party in, and that is part of the problem. So I would love to look at term limits that are within reasonable time of the congressman learning the job and working for the people. And the last thing I'll say is, we're going to look at our enemies. Let's consider Russia, Cuba, Venezuela, and all these other totalitarian governments that will like nothing else to do than to encroach on our securities and freedoms.
Jennifer.
Do you support, both of you, and you support any changes to gun control laws or policies, in particular with assault weapons and all the weapons that are used in mass shootings? And what can we do about that?
I guess Robert.
So, do we have unnecessary deaths because of gun violence? Absolutely. Way too many. Mass school shootings, high concentrated population areas, mass casualty shootings, they seem to be the calling of those that want to cause harm and make a statement. Are we going to remove every long gun, high-powered rifle from every household? No. However, can we institute common sense policies, better safety nets within policy? Yes. The federal government has a Title III, I believe it's Title III, where if you want to buy a machine gun, you have to qualify, you have to apply, you have to have insurance, you have to be bonded. Our police officers go to constant training. We retrain them for proficiency, and we hold them accountable. And when they screw up, we address it. So the fact that a person can buy a high capacity, rapid firing, multiple round firing firearm, long gun, over the internet is unacceptable. We need greater pieces in place that are safety measures to prevent a Uvalde or any of the mass shootings that we have had. I've seen children die of violence, and I think they deserve it, our community deserves it, our seniors deserve it, everyone in this country deserves it. And we need to stop the partisan divide that refuses to address this issue.
Thank you. And so as Congress, in Congress, I voted affirmatively to close the loophole on background checks. But I voted against a ban, and I'll tell you why. The way we need to protect our children is by protecting our children. If you somehow think that somehow new gun laws are going to somehow protect our children and protect Americans, we have plenty of gun laws. It's crazy people that go, and people that want to make a statement or they want 15 minutes of fame. You have to actively protect the children. That's why, as mayor of Miami-Dade County, after Parkland, we spent $20 million to put a police officer in every single school in Miami-Dade County. And that's why I have the endorsement of the PBA. That's why I have the endorsement of the Fraternal Order of Police, because they know I am, pro police. I am pro protecting our citizens and our children. And so, if I guess I'm halfway, right? I want to support the Second Amendment and our right of citizens, of lawful citizens, to have guns. But I also don't want folks that shouldn't have guns to have guns, and that's why I voted for the universal background check and closing those loopholes.
Going down to our last question. One of you guys got a burning great question that no one else stole, Joe? and you can't take that.
They're looking over my shoulder here. No question about it. I think everybody understands that fossil fuel is not our future as far as an energy source. The problem is how we get there and how fast we push towards that. You've got some states, California has already set an end date on the sale of gasoline-powered automobiles. Would you be in favor of that for both of you here? And how quickly should we push this agenda getting away from fossil fuels?
Carlos first.
Okay, I would not, because this hurricane should teach you something that we need to get out of. Once you want to get out of the state of Florida, can you imagine if everybody had electric-powered vehicles trying to get out of the state of Florida? Right now, the technology is not right there. So I believe in all of the above energy, all of it. And by the way, the world is going to need more fossil fuels for the next 70 years. Why shouldn't it be American fossil fuels? We produce it 40% cleaner than anybody else. Matter of fact, if we exchanged American natural gas for Chinese coal, we could probably reduce worldwide emissions by 50%, because China, not the United States, China is the world's biggest polluter by a factor of 2. And yet, they're not even supposed to start the reduction, according to the Paris Climate Accord, until the year 2030. How is it that we allowed the world's biggest polluter to actually, which right now is actually opening up a new coal-fired electric plant every week, to go scot-free. Yes, we have to do more here, but we also need to point the finger across the way to China and say, hey, why don't you exchange your coal-fired electric plants with our natural gas, and we can actually do a heck of a lot better for the world than forcing us to do all the things that the Biden administration is trying to do. We're not there yet. We're not there yet. We need to, and all of the above energy solution, and that's where I'm at.
Robert?
So from the 1800s to 1900, the turn of the century, we had a similar argument, kerosene versus electric. We got over that. Do we need change? Absolutely, I'm for it. Now, we just escaped a big one, storm. We have an increased storm activity with greater and greater strength of storms, right? Green gases are what's warming the planet. Fossil fuels are contributors to that. If we don't take action, not only are we going to hurt our ecology, not only are we going to hurt populations, we're going to hurt our economy. So anybody who sits here and tells you they vote against it because it's going to hurt the economy, I'd say look at the other side. It's going to hurt the economy if we don't. What will happen if one of those bridges, like I said earlier, gets taken out by a storm? We have a congressman who's voted against the Inflation Reduction Act. We have a congressman who's voted against, sorry sir, it's your vote? The Protecting Our Children's Act. Let's stop going along with the partisan ideology and let's work for the American people and our country's future. We all can do better. We all deserve
Okay,
better.
Robert, it's time, and you're getting way off subject, and you've brought another subject in, so Carlos gets to respond if he wants to, but very briefly.
Yeah, the infrastructure plan, we already had 700 billion that was already in infrastructure, for infrastructure spending. They added another 600 billion of all this other stuff, the Green New Deal, et cetera, that the Biden administration want to do, and add more to our debt. So that's why I voted against it, because we already had $700 billion in the infrastructure bill for infrastructure, real infrastructure, and that's why I voted against it, and I'm glad I voted against it.
Well, thanks. All right, that's it. End of questions. Let's do our closing statements. I'm going to remind you guys again, we'll do about 2 minutes, get your points out, talk about yourselves. If you bring the other up, I'm going to let them respond. So, Carlos, why don't you start?
Thank you very much, and let me say that it's been an honor to represent the people of Florida's 26th, soon to be Florida 28th congressional district, and I'm very honored. Being in Congress is a great, great honor. If you all don't know who I am, I'm Carlos Jimenez. I started out my career as a firefighter. I became the fire chief of the city of Miami. I became the manager of the city of Miami. I became a commissioner for Miami-Dade County. Finally served as mayor of Miami-Dade County for about 10 years. So I have a wide range of experience dealing with local government, and now I'm learning what it takes to be a congressman and try to represent you the best way that I can. My commitment is the commitment to America, a commitment to Florida District 28, the state of Florida, and finally America. And it consists of a secure America, America that has secure borders, a safe America where we're going to, our plan is to add 200,000 more police officers at the local level to reduce crime. Also, to make it difficult for prosecutors that don't do their job, basically prosecuting crime, to continue to not prosecute crime, because we've seen the crime wave that's happening all around the United States. My commitment is also to have an affordable America, to reduce the inflation. The inflation is killing us. It's killing the ones that we shouldn't be, we should be helping, the poor and the middle class. We have inflation's running over 8%, 40-year high in inflation. We need to do that by reducing government spending, wasteful government spending. We need to be affordable, have affordable energy, and that we need to have we need to be energy independent again. We need to reduce our dependence on foreign oil and foreign partners not partners, enemies like Venezuela and Iran. We need to reduce our dependence on them. We need to restore our freedoms. Our First Amendment freedoms are under attack, across the United States by big tech. And today, even Governor Newsom just You said 2 minutes. Hold on, give me okay, let me finish up, and I'll give him more time, okay? All right, I'll give him more time. All right, we need to reduce, look, in California, Governor Newsom today signed a bill that said doctors, if they somehow have difference of opinion on COVID-19, they could have their licenses taken away. That is an assault on our First Amendment. The Second Amendment is under assault. And finally, education. Look, we will pass a Parents' Bill of Rights that allows parents, A, to know where their taxpayer money is going to fund the schools, and also what is being taught to our children at schools, the curriculum. We need to take charge of what's happening in our schools, and so that's our commitment to America. And if I'm elected your commissioner, your congressman, all right? Oh boy, that's way back. Okay, if I'm elected your congressman, I pledge to vote in favor. And the first thing we're going to do, we're going to eliminate the 87,000 IRS agents that this administration has coming after us, you and me. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Stop with the booze. Just to be clear, how much time was that? 3 minutes. All right. Robert, you have 3 minutes. And if you have 3 minutes.
All right.
Be good, everyone.
So, I'm sitting up here because I want to represent you. I've started my public service, 34 years in the military, reserves, law enforcement, 26 years, and 2 years in the Florida House. Yes, I only spent 2 years in the House. And then I thought I was done. So, I believe in representative government. I believe that we deserve more than what we're getting in Washington and Tallahassee. I believe we need public servants who are committed to the issues of which the communities they serve are of greatest need. I believe that a woman should have a choice, and no one should dictate what she does or does not do with her body. I believe that our children should be safe, our community should be safe, and that we need to go to Congress, not to vote against your vote on issues like the presidential election, the cruise ships, economic issues, schools. We need to make sure that we, in Congress, represent public health, women's health, children's health. We need to negotiate with, or allow for Medicare to negotiate prices of medicine, like insulin. We need to reduce the cost of insulin. We need to stop the partisan divide that prohibits or is an obstacle to those industries that are stealing our money. They're predators. We need to address corporate greed. And we need to quit with this and misinformation, because it's what's confusing everybody and has many people checked out. We need to fight for you, the voters. And if you elect me, I plan to do just that. I will be your representative first, and I will make sure that I fight to ensure that every dollar you deserve comes back to you. That the policies you want addressed in Congress are addressed. And guess what? If the other side, or even the president or the administration, introduces a piece that I don't agree with, that goes against your interest, I will introduce amendments, try to change it, or policy pieces to do just that. Thank you. My name is Robert Asensio. I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. That concludes tonight. If you still want to join Hometown after all this, we would love to have it. We are volunteer. Have a great evening. We will see you all in about a year and a half. Wow. How do you vote?